Okay, good evening, everybody. My name's Brendan. I'm with Coder Academy. Thank you for spending your Thursday evening with us. We're going to have a little bit of a chat whilst other people get admitted. To start with, can I just check that everybody can hear me, and could you say hi and just let us know that you're out there. That's good stuff, dropping it into the chat. Thank you very much.
Hi.
Hearing you loud and clear.
Thank you very much. Guys, brilliant. Now, some of you guys I know I've already reached out to and had a chat to in one way, shape or form. Some of you not so. Can I just ask that each of you just mute your microphones so we don't get any background noise during the presentation. And the other thing is, if you have, I think there's a couple of people logged in with unusual names like iPhone 1, and I doubt your mother christened you that. So if you're able to just give us a name that we can talk to you if we need to, that would be brilliant. Okay, so guys, what are we doing here this evening? We've really got two things going on. Number one, we have got some brilliant people from the data analytics, data science industry here to talk to you this evening, to tell you their stories, and for you to engage with them and to ask them any questions that you'd like. And that'll be coming up fairly soon. The other thing that I know a lot of you are interested in is the Data Analytics and Python short course that is going to be running very soon. And to that end, I'm very happy that today we have Ramon Perez with us. Ramon is, just waving at you there, Ramon is from the Dominican Republic. He's out of Johns Hopkins University in the USA, and he's here now working with Coder Academy and is the lead educator on the Data Analytics and Python short course, as I say, that's coming up soon. So Ramon, I'll be handing over to very soon to talk to the various guests that we have here this evening. Probably a couple of other people that we should introduce very quickly. Goran and Dallas, are you guys there? Can you just jump onto the screen for a moment? So Goran and Dallas, along with myself, we work as course advisors to chat to anybody who is interested in any of our courses. I'm just seeing someone called iPhone has just arrived in the webinar. iPhone, if you could change your name, that'd be brilliant. So Goran and Dallas and myself work as course advisors, and we will be very happy to talk to anybody after this industry event or tomorrow about any questions you might have regarding the short course that's coming up. Equally, during this webinar, if you have any questions either for our panel or about the Python and Data Analytics short course, if you can please drop them into the chat, and Goran and Dallas will answer as many of those questions about the short course as they can live on screen in the chat. Anything that's directed at the panel, we will save up for after the panel, and then Ramon will address the panel with those questions. Dallas, Goran, are you having trouble getting on screen? Look, if that's the case, don't worry. Okay, so let's get this thing moving. So yes, we have some brilliant people here to talk to this evening, and I know that many people who have logged in for this webinar are looking at either transitioning into a career in data analytics or are already in a career in data analytics and are looking to upskill. So what I'm going to do first is give a very brief introduction to who Coder Academy is. So essentially, Coder Academy is a training college for all things technology. So our major courses, you can see them here, the full stack web development boot camps, the most intensive coding training boot camps available in Australia. We also run a back-end development and DevOps boot camp, which we call Code, Cloud and Cyber. Again, the most innovative Code, Cloud and Cyber boot camp available in Australia, highly intensive training. And we also run a data analysis and Python short course, which is the one we're going to talk about this evening, and the one that I know a lot of you have logged in to find out about. The 98% positive review rating there comes from Course Report, which is an entirely independent portal on which any student can say whatever they like about any course they've taken. And to get 98% positive review rating is pretty much gobsmacking. So we're very proud of that, and we work very hard to make sure that our students get a really great experience. So briefly about the Python and data analysis short course. It starts in a few weeks' time on Saturday, the 31st of October. It runs for just 7 weeks. So basically it runs for 7 consecutive Saturdays, 9 to 5 on 7 consecutive Saturdays, and then from 6 to 9 p.m. on the 6 Tuesdays in between. So there's 67 hours of class time, and then there is a few hours of self-study in the week as well. The delivery is 100% online via a virtual classroom. I'm not sure if many of you experienced a virtual classroom, but a virtual classroom is a brilliant online forum in which really replicates a face-to-face classroom extremely well. There's a certificate of completion at the end. There are no entry requirements, but obviously we are looking for people who are going to get the most out of this. And as I say, that tends to be people who are either wanting to get into data analytics, or who are wanting to upskill in Python, or who are already in data analytics but maybe don't use Python. Maybe they're using what we call last century's technology, i.e. Excel. And you're wanting to come into this century and learn how to automate and learn how to really work with huge data sets with Python and give yourself an edge either in your current job or in a future job. The all-important number, the fee for the course is $1,999, but ladies and gentlemen, this evening, and for this evening only, we have a 20% discount code, and that is valid until 8 o'clock tomorrow evening. So anyone who is at this webinar tonight and who decides they want to sign up can get, what's that, $400 off simply by using that code Python20. Now it is all in capitals, so you have to type it in all in capitals, and I'll show you later where you can actually go to register for the course if you wish to do that. So what do you get in this short course, which, as I say, Ramon will be teaching? Weeks 1 and 2, fundamentals of Python programming for data analytics. Everybody needs to know the fundamentals, and Jupyter notebooks. Now, if you don't understand the jargon, don't let it put you off. This is all stuff that Ramon comes at this very much from a beginner's point of view to start with and takes you up very quickly. Weeks 3 and 4, how to gather, clean and prepare data for analysis, how to consolidate data from multiple sources, and all importantly, how to visualize complex data. If you can't visualize it, it's very difficult to get other people to understand it. Weeks 5 and 6, statistics for data analytics, data interpretation, and in week 7, real world stuff where you have a project which you start from scratch, and using everything you've learned in the previous 6 weeks, you present a piece of work right from the beginning right through to completion. Data analytics, as many of you know, if you can make an argument and back it up with data, your argument has an awful lot more punch, an awful lot more power. And that's where the world is going. Why would you do this particular short course? Number one, it's the most comprehensive Python and data analytics short course available in Australia. If you're going to do anything, you do this one. The project that you do in week 7 is, as I say, takes you through the entire data analytics cycle. You've got that to keep. You also get to keep all the work you've done in the course, as Ramon sets up a portal in which all of your work is stored. And that is then really quite an impressive piece of work that you can show to any future employer. You gain direct access to high-level industry experts. We've got various industry experts here this evening that you're going to meet even before the course. We bring either some of these same people will be coming in to speak on the course and others. And on a weekly basis, Ramon brings somebody in and they get, they address the class and you get the opportunity to have a chat. Also, the ACS, the Australian Computer Society, is offering a year's free membership to anyone who does this course, and that year's membership is worth over $300. So again, it's a fairly terrific package if what you are looking to do is to get into data analytics, and certainly if you're looking to upskill yourself in Python. Career outcomes, data analyst, average earnings, $92,000, and the demand for data analysts is up 28% in 2020. It's hardly a surprise. We're all inundated with data all the time. Every single business, from small businesses to large businesses, collects masses of data. The question is, do any of them know what to do with it? And your panel this evening are people who very definitely know what to do with it. Yes, so just to reiterate, for the next 24 hours only, if you wish to join the course, somebody killed their microphone there. If you wish to do this course, then the obvious thing to do would be to sign up in the next 24 hours because you will pay $400 less. So as I say, the code is Python20. It is all in capitals, and you simply enter that at the checkout before 8 p.m. tomorrow. That's where you can enroll, and I'm sure Dallas will drop that into the chat so that you've got it there. And one other thing, coming up on the 20th of October, we are having a taster session for this course where Ramon is actually going to teach a session free online at 6 o'clock on the evening of Tuesday, the 20th of October. So anyone who wants to understand how the virtual classroom works, you can actually get a live taster of that. And as I say, Ramon will be running a teaching session, a training session on Tuesday, the 20th of October. So it's all there for you, for those of you who are interested in the short course. These are nice little pictures of myself, Goran, and Dallas. I think without any doubt, it's clear who's the most handsome. I think it's this bloke over here. So guys, there's our names, there's our phone numbers, there's our contacts. If you do want to get in touch, please do. And I am now going to stop talking, and I am now going to throw over to Ramon, who is going to introduce you to the panel. And please, guys, keep the questions coming. We will endeavour to answer everything we possibly can during the session this evening. Thanks very much, and have a good evening.
Awesome.
Over to you, Ramon.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Brandon. If you can hear me, I want you all to just say, yes, I can hear you in the chat, please.
Yes.
Awesome. I got a verbal. Perfect. Fantastic. All right. So I can see the chat just going off, so I'll assume that everybody can hear me fine. All right. So I would like to welcome everyone to this event, Transition into a Career into Data Analytics. And in particular, I would like to welcome or to thank you for giving us the privilege of occupying your Wednesday evening for a couple of hours to discuss a topic that we are also passionate about. That said, allow me to first introduce the wonderful set of speakers that we have for this evening. I'm going to go from left to right. So the first one is Michelle. And Michelle is currently Michelle is a data and analytics senior leader with over 20 years of experience leading data teams, both large and small. She has worked across multiple industries, and she is currently studying for her data science and leadership master's degree. And we're super, super, super excited to have her here. Shira, who is right next to Michelle, is currently the group director of data science and analytics at the Global Fashion Group, which is the parent organization of The Iconic. I'm sure some of you, if maybe not all of you, have already purchased a piece of clothing or even more from the Iconic. So Shira was awarded the #2 spot for analytics leader in Australia in 2019. And I think I don't need to say anything else besides that to put him on the spot. Then next in line, we got Sanan. Sanan was recognized by the Institute of Analytics Professionals in Australia as one of the top 25 analytics leaders in the country. Before diving into his current role, Sanan came from a more traditional accounting background, and over the years, he transitioned into data-driven roles for the likes of EY and Suncorp. We are very excited to have Sanan here as well. And then also with us, we have Angela. Angela is the head of analytics and AI at Teachers Health Fund with more than 15 years of experience in banking and insurance and the insurance industry. In 2018, Angela and her team won the Data Science and AI National Industry Innovation Award. So I caught it right over there because we're gonna get off from that point onwards. Angela has an impressive background, such as Michelle, such as Shira, and such as Sanan. And we are super excited to talk to you tonight about data analytics. If you probably sign up or seen on LinkedIn or in your newsfeed or anywhere, how many panels and how many discussions, how many conferences there are to talk to you about data science, to talk to you about artificial intelligence, to talk to you about machine learning, and to talk to you about some of the really cool things that are happening in the world right now with automating things. Well, all of those things require one particular step before you get to the point, before you get to that level. And that is that you need to know how to analyze, how to crunch data, how to actually derive meaning, how to derive sense, or how to make sense of information. So unless you have this particular core skill, you cannot get to the next level, or at least I don't think so. And I'm sure a lot of people here will agree with me. So that's why we brought this conference. That's why we brought this panel together, to talk about how do you break into the industry so that then later on, if you wish to transition into something different, into more advanced, into a more advanced role, well, you already have the core skills. You can already jump or pivot to wherever you want to go. Now, with that said, that is the panel for this evening. I also want to introduce you one last person who is gonna be showcasing a project at the end, and we are really, really excited to have Kevin with us tonight. So Kevin, as you can see here, Kevin studied engineering after school. He wasn't very enamored with the idea of engineering. He was more, but later on, he found out about data analytics through some projects at work. He broke into the industry first with the Iconic, and now he's transitioning into a new role at a different company called Deputy. And Kevin is going to show us a project that he's very passionate about. Today, he's going to show you a bit of code. And he's going to explain a little bit about it. We're going to grill him with some questions, but it's going to be fine. It's going to be fun. And then we're going to open it up for questions for both, for the panelists and also for Kevin. So without further ado, how about we get started? I'm going to go ahead and put a question for each one of the panelists, and then let them say hi and introduce themselves as well. So along with a short introduction, we would love to hear from you. What has been your career trajectory in the last 5 or 10 years, and how has data analytics impacted where you are at now? So I'll go ahead and start with Michelle.
Hi, good evening. So I am currently a student, full-time student doing a master's, but going back over the last 5 to 10 years, I was working in a telco company, working as a senior leader in the data analytics space, running a sort of largish team there. And so we were running that for a lot of the company, the organisation there. I've then moved into a role, same company, when they were doing a project and they were changing the core platform and the billing system that they used, and it was a very large project. And so I then moved into a role where I was a lead, the data and business reporting lead on that project. So that went from having quite a large team to having no direct reports, but actually doing a role still in the data analytics space as we managed the data components and reporting components as we were swapping to the new system. So I did that for a couple of years. I then left the company and went to a much smaller organisation where I was heading up the data analytics, but it was a very small team, and it was about setting up the strategy, setting up the data analytics and lifting up the performance of what they did at the company there and growing that sort of data analytics side. Then my role moved, a restructure that moved into a head of data engineering role in the IT department at that, and that was at Pickles Options. And so I was there for a little while, but then I've decided to leave and to been doing some study in the data science space. I'm going back to learning, which I haven't done for quite some time. So yeah, it's quite a varied space, always been in that data analytics type space, but changing different roles, changing companies, and changing industry. So that's a little bit about my background the last few years.
Fantastic, awesome. And I'm really excited to dive even deeper into how has your experience been, with a couple more questions that we have here in a second. So Shira, can you please share with us how has the last 5 or 10 years been for you in career-wise, and how has data analytics impacted that?
Thanks, Roman. Thanks for having me. So my name's Shira, the K is silent. Just in case you're wondering how it's spelled, Shira. I tell people my parents decided to have fun naming me. So it's interesting. My career, I usually split my career as there are 2 splits I do, right? So one is the 30-70 split. So 30% of my career I spent a lot of time working on commercial proprietary software like SAS and SPSS and just thinking that was the world. And then I learned R on my own, and then Python on my own, and then the world changed, and then the opportunities changed. So that was the 30-70 split. And then they have the other 60-40 split of my career, where I spent 60% of my career working for a consulting company, where we did data consulting. And so I've been working from the time when it was called business analytics, and then it was called data analytics, and now they call it data science, and I'm sure they'll call it something else. I'm waiting for data artist to come up soon, so that's when I'll be called the data artist. So that's how it's been. But the idea of what I've been doing over the course of all these years is basically work with data, trying to make decisions out of it, and trying to help people make smart decisions with it. So that's what I've done in different forms and shapes. Of course, the trajectory has been pretty exciting because it was a newish field when I started, and we were lucky to be at the right place at the right time. So we got to work with some of the old technologies and then start to pick up the new technologies and also try to run with them. I still remember times when I picked up R, and then I used to teach people R, and I was like, the people who turn up to me to learn R, which is interesting because R was new, I was new, everyone was new. So whatever I said was what it was. So it's exciting. I think we've come a long way from there, where I can't say stuff and people will believe me, but still, I think that experience of learning things and then my career changing from there has been pretty exciting. So it's going to be interesting to see this conversation and see how people like Kevin and everyone else have picked stuff up.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. And I'm sure we'll dive even deeper onto what your career trajectory has been. All right, Angela, please.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. My name is Angela Kim, and it's such a pleasure to be here with all panelists and all the attendees as well. So when I talking about looking back past the 10 years, my career journey, what happened, as Michelle touched on, I think really important part is I continue to try to learn and improve, and I never tried to stay at one place too long, like more than 4 years, because I wanted continue improve and learning, and also I changed the industry from between insurance and banking industry because I really wanted to get more exposure and to work on more different type of projects. So that really enabled me to get a chance to try different tools and different data environments. And they really almost forced me to learn more new things and new evolving technology. And it's very interesting because I started from actuarial analyst, but I wasn't too sure whether I want to be an actuary for the rest of my life. So I decided maybe there's something behind the rainbow or something like this. So I wanted to explore, okay, what's next? And then it led me to marketing technology analytics. And then I learned about all different marketing technology and different tools and different data processing and different analytics perspective. And then I moved to insurance company. That's where the first data science kicked in, because I was tasked to really form a team and bringing different people from different organization, part of the organization, BI team, because data science was a kind of new concept. So data engineer was a new concept. And so it was like building from the scratch, you know, for the firstly appointed chief data analytics officer. So it was very interesting because everything was new experimentation and new exploration. But through the experience I learned, and I worked with a great, you know, bunch of people, and I really enjoyed you know, working with the people rather than working with the data, because at the end of the day, the people is most important, you know, part of your, you know, work. And I continued on my learning journey and moved to bank. And that's where I, you know, collaborate with more like industry, academy, you know, the labs, try to bring, you know, external capability if it's needed, and try to balance, you know, what to really borrow in terms of, you know, capability, the experience. And I think, yeah, that's, you know, kind of my experience in the past, you know, 7 to 10 years, I guess.
Okay, fantastic. And I really hope, or I look forward to unpacking that last bit, or one of the last parts that you mentioned about the having people, and then also like having the data, but then understanding that the people at the end of the day have to, even though the data might be the source of truth, at the end of the day, you got to have somebody making the decision behind it. So I'm looking forward to unpacking that. Sanat, please.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to be part of this session today. So a bit about myself. I have started my career about 27 years ago at EY. I spent 18 years at EY and joined Suncorp 8 years or 9 years ago. Then spent six and a half years at Suncorp and left Suncorp to start Ingrity, which is a data analytics company in Sydney. When I look back at my career, like Ramon said, that I started off as a chartered accountant. When I started my career, accounting was in demand, and you know, if you are an accountant, you're set for life. So people actually promised the future and told me, if you are a chartered accountant, big tick, you don't have to worry about it. But 10 years ago, I realized that accounting was one of the fastest dying professions in the world. And I was too young to end it that way. So I chose to actually make a pivot. And I pivoted from accounting to data and analytics. Well, I want to be very honest with you that I can't write a single line of code. And I can't write a single line of code, and I'm not going to try doing that ever. But what I have done, when I was at Suncorp, I had a team of about 450 people in my structure. I led a $100 million data transformation program at Suncorp. Suncorp is one of the top 15 companies in Australia. So I have a lot of experience in analytics leadership. How do you put a data strategy together? How do you get the business to get the buy-in? How do you assemble a team? How do you execute on large projects? How do you realize value from data analytics initiatives? How do you measure the benefits? How do you build a data analytics culture? So that's where I specialize. While everything was going on very well at Suncorp, I was actually agitating for something really big. I wanted to end it well. So hence I left Suncorp to start Ingrity, a data analytics company 2 years ago. Today we have a team of 30 people. We work with all the most of the major banks and all the top 3 insurance companies in Australia. We work with large retailers. We work with big engineering companies. We work with some big brands, and we are growing. So I think when I look back at my career, I think it is important that you have a good sense for what is to come, and you have to always look forward and make the right pivots at the right time. Because I think, especially in data analytics, the technology is actually evolving and changing. You know, people who are making money by coding today, we want that in 10 years from or 5 years from now, computers will do most of the coding. So if you're a coder, you probably won't have much to do, right? So with automation and AI and everything else, things are going to change quite rapidly. So I think it's important that you have a futuristic view about your career and make sure that you are well prepared into the future. Thank you, Ramo.
Awesome, awesome, fantastic. So Sanat, I'm going to put you in the spot right away. Let's kick it off with what everybody's here for. Let's talk about how does a person, since you said you've managed a very, very large group of teams, of analytical teams, and you have led analytical transformation for other companies. So let's put it on your hands right now. How does a person without an analytical background break into the industry? And what are the two skills, technical or soft, that you think are the paramount for a successful career in it? How does one break into it? And what are the two main skills to your view?
So I think my view is that people build careers like pyramids, and some people build careers like towers. The people who build careers like towers tend to specialize in one or two things, and they go higher up on that. And there are people who are building careers like pyramid. In the long run, the people who build careers like pyramid tend to have a sustainable career, because everything is changing. There are restructures, there are different priorities and whatnot. If you have a bigger base, the chances are that you will survive for the longest. So my advice is that if you want to enter into this field, don't try to build a tower, try to build a pyramid. Have a broad foundation, and make sure you focus on the depth, on the breadth of your skills. Build the breadth first and be able to do a bit of everything before you start actually building your depth, right? If you focus on depth, you're building a tower. And if you build that too early, you will be only known for that. And if there are great opportunities and that technology or that particular skill is in demand, you will do really well. But when that music stops, you will be on the ground. In terms of the second question around whether soft skills or technical skills are important, I think both of them are equally important. You can't survive without both. You need both. But in the data analytics field, a lot of people focus and invest heavily on the technical skills. But unfortunately or fortunately, you have to actually work with people. So therefore, on the soft skill side, there are three important skills one should have in order to succeed. One is communication, being able to communicate effectively and get your message across. Two is influencing. There are a lot of people who would love to give you orders and tell you what to do, but you need to be able to ask them, why are we doing what are we doing? And what are we going to get from this? And what happens if you don't do it that way? So I think being able to influence and share your thoughts and ideas is extremely important. And the third one is actually problem solving. Data is very useful in solving problems. If you can understand what the problem is, and if you can solve that with data, you will be very, very successful.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, Michelle, I'm going to put it in your hands. You have led very diverse set of teams, and you have been put on the spot of innovating right off the bat quite a few times throughout your career trajectory. So how does a person break into the industry, into the analytics, without an analytical background? How does a person break into the industry? And what are the top two skills that, in your view, are paramount for a successful career in it?
Yeah, first of all, I agree with some of the comments that Sanon was making about some of these skills, which are certainly quite valuable. A couple of things that I look for, particularly if it's someone who might not be fully skilled or coming in with a big background in the data space already. I'm looking for someone with an initiative, someone who will initiate and sort of show that they've definitely got an interest in the data analytics, and to be able to show that and demonstrate that by having done something off their own back. So it might be that they've studied something, or they've learnt some skills, or they've done a little side project, or things that they've done possibly in their own time or possibly in their current job, where they've shown that, yes, they might be doing a job that looks after X, but they can then show that they have, sorry, just dropping out, and then show that they've done a bit of a project that shows that they do understand data analytics and what it's all about. So so that's sort of one of the things I'm looking for, is the initiative, and demonstrate that they do have some of that that background. The other skill I'd be looking for is curiosity, and so that is a little bit about the communication. We're talking about asking questions. Is I want someone that can ask questions and ask why. Like, if someone wants to do or build something, ask why, ask how the business runs, ask what's the problems in the business, to have the knowledge of what the business is trying to solve, what the business is trying to do, or how the business makes money, makes it a lot easier to then say, oh, okay, now how can I use data and how can I use what I know to be able to solve those problems? So once again, it's a little bit about, you know, if you can demonstrate some of those skills while you're in your current job, then that's what you can talk to if you're going for a job interview or trying to break into the field. And in particular, it can be, I've taken on people who have worked elsewhere in the organisation and wanted to get into the data space. And so I've interviewed them so they know that they've got some of this background of the company and can bring some experience that could be useful. And then they've shown that, yes, they've had an interest and they've built this and they've done this little bit of coding, or they did this little bit of project. And that gives me some confidence that they're really serious about coming into the space. So that's a couple of things that I'd sort of recommend. And in particular, I'd say possibly don't leave your day job and use your day job and your current job as much as you can to start exploring that data analytics space rather than completely leave and go in cold.
Well, I'll circle back with what you just said. You have taken on people from other areas of your company into an analytical role. So just to reiterate on that, they don't really have to leave the company to join an analytical role or to join the industry per se, because the company in which they might be in right now might be already in that space. It's just not their job there. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That is so awesome.
Yeah.
So Shira, what are your thoughts on how does one break into the industry without an analytical background, and what are the 2 top skills in your mind?
Okay, so I'm going to break into two questions, right? The first question is, what do you need to break into the field, and the other one is, what do you need to say improve on your career? So the first one, I typically advise people, you need 3 things, and 3 things only. Number 1, you need to be able to code, and contrary to anything that people typically say, I think if you're going to start your career in analytics, if you can't code, the biggest problem you will end up facing is you will, I've seen a lot of people raise their hands and say, I want to be an analyst, and they'll be given an Excel file to copy paste, and that's their life for the next 5 years. And you don't want that life. I often joke that building and working with Excel sheets should be a penal punishment in a prison colony, right? So that's not something someone should do. So if you can code and can automate stuff and can do things, you'll be able to do things much faster and pick up a lot of things. So an ability to code is a number 1 thing that you definitely need. I won't advocate on a particular language, but picking up on a language that everyone uses is always going to be useful, like Python or R. But if you're one of those people who wants to pick up Java or Haskell or whatever it is, you can do that, definitely. But the ability to code is number 1. Number 2, the ability to think logically. And what I mean by ability to think logically is that common saying that common sense is not all that common. So when you approach a problem, how are you approaching it, right? So a lot of times when you work in a data function or a data field, all you're doing is solving a problem. So how do you solve a problem and how do you think logically? And so for example, if you're given a bigger problem, do you break it into smaller parts? Are you able to abstract it away? Are you able to solve a part and able to come up with an answer for it instead of just going down a rabbit hole? So that logical thinking is really, really important. And there is no course that can do logical thinking. You just need to start thinking and working like that. And the third one is whichever area or business that you, domain that you work for, if it's retail, if it's gaming, if it's gambling, if it's cuisine, whatever it is, a bit of business knowledge about that area will be really useful. So you can't just go in, guns blazing, saying, I am a wizard in Python or I'm a wizard in R, give me the job. You also need to be able to understand, for example, in retail, what a net merchandise value is. For example, if you work in banking, what transaction value is, all of that stuff, right? So ability to understand and appreciate the basics of that particular business field is really important. So like I said, ability to code, number 1, logical thinking, number 2, and a bit of business understanding, number 3. So those are 3 things you need to break into an area. Now, 2 things that will make you stand out and make you help grow is number 1, and from a technical point of view, your ability to unlearn and relearn new things. And the reason I say that is the famous Zen story where a kid comes to a Zen master and says, I want to learn new things. And and everything about enlightenment and everything, just teach me. So the Zen master makes the student sit down in front of him. And then he opens up, brings a cup of tea. And then he starts pouring tea into it. And then the tea starts overflowing. So he keeps pouring onto it and the tea keeps overflowing. And the reason that happens is because the cup is already full. And the more you pour into it, the more it will pour out. So the lesson is, if you want to learn something new, you have to first unlearn everything and throw away all your biases. So if you already think you know everything in a particular field, if you've learned a programming language, if you think you've done something really well, I think the number one thing that you need, and something I've learned personally in my career, is the ability to unlearn stuff and say, I'm going to learn something from scratch. I did that in my career. Halfway through, I said, screw all the commercial tools, I'm going to learn something new. And that helped me change and pivot. So that is something that's important. And you can do it at any point in your career. It doesn't have to be at the beginning, at the middle, at the end. You can do it at any point. So that's really important. And the second thing that you need to know, and I think I echo everyone else's opinion, is the ability to work with people. Because at the end of the day, when you work with data, you're working with people, you're working with people's tasks, jobs, and lives. You're automating stuff that somebody was doing. And so when you try to roll things out like that, you just can't just say, here it is, go use it. You'll have to humanize it. You have to make it more appealing for people to use and make people make decisions. So that skill is something that you need to pick up. So those are the two things that I would say makes you stand out from the crowd.
Fantastic. Learn to code, learn to solve problems, domain expertise. I'll summarize the last one on like learning a little bit about the business that you're going to go into domain expertise, and not necessarily an expert, but you got to know a little bit about the business you're going into. You can't just say, I know how to code, give me the challenge or whatnot. You might be breaking things as opposed to fixing them. That is fantastic. All right. So let's pass the baton to Angela now. So Angela, how does a person without an analytical background break into the industry, and what are the top skills in your mind or in your view that are paramount to a successful career in data analytics?
Thanks for the question, Ramon. Before I start, maybe I want to ask, why do you want to get into data analytics? Because genuinely ask yourself, what is the reason why I want to get into data analytics? I hope, the answer is because, it's really suiting to me. Like I want to, I enjoy, I think, I've got, the talent, and, my aptitude is aligned with data analytics, and I will enjoy it, rather than seems like very popular, trendy, and very, most of the jobs available. Because at the end of the day, you have to spend all your time at work. And if you don't enjoy it, it'll be quite dreadful, because, there's nothing worse than you have to spend all day, 5 days a week and 300, 12 months, going on and on, that you have to spend your time what you don't enjoy. So ask yourself, what do I really like about the data analytics? Because you have to align with what you are good at, your strength, with data analytics field. Obviously, AI and technology is evolving. There are a lot of jobs available, and by 2030, maybe about 90% of jobs will be AI-based professions. So it makes sense that actually you want to get into data analytics area. But you have to remember that there are so many different streams of jobs. You don't have to be a data scientist if you don't particularly enjoy coding. You don't have to be data engineers, because I think someone mentioned earlier, there are so many different jobs appearing. And also, these days, data orchestrator, data translator, and all different, roles are appearing, because you need different capability to bring people together and to, create a team and deliver the possible outcome, right? So you need a bit of homework, right? In research, and Mr. Professor Google is available, right? So it's just, fingertips away. So you can find out, what do I want in the future, and what's really interesting, and ask yourself genuinely to your heart, curious mind is most important. But again, if you don't enjoy, how can you be curious? So you have to find your cup of tea. Oh, I think I like this. And then what that means under the umbrella of data analytics, and find the job that really make you enjoyable, because of course you can't enjoy work 100%, but if it's enjoyable, that means you become more curious, and that one thing leads to another. And that's how you move on to journey, because maybe we don't have to be data science in the future, because all jobs, coding will be automated, and new job will be appearing. Maybe you'll be robot and machine controller that who really controls all different devices and bring all the insights, so that you can really work together. So whatever comes in the future, I think the most important skill is really having curious mind and having interest about your aptitude, and always ready to challenge yourself. And getting into data analytics is one thing, but a lot of the tools available, and these kind of great courses at the moment. For example, you're offering from Coder Academy and this event, right? And attending here is a great step, because you want to learn about what's happening, and that's really set you one step further to achieve what you want to achieve, I guess.
Awesome, fantastic. This is great. Why do you want to get into this field first? Align it. Once you figure that out, can you align that with your strengths? And then do your homework. Whatever you're gonna choose, whatever you're gonna do to join it, do your homework. I mean, make sure you know why, how, and where you're gonna go into. So this is awesome. With that, this was an excellent way. So I'm actually gonna recap what everyone said here. Focus on the breadth in this field as opposed to the depth. Try to build up that foundation so that way you can have a broad set of skills as opposed to a very tiny specialized set of skills. Like Sanan mentioned, take initiative. Take initiative. You have to put yourself out there. And this relates to what Michelle said, do a project. Do something, show your work, demonstrate. Once you have decided that you're going to go into the field, try to build something, try to get something done, try to put something out there. So I loved as well what Shira said, learn to code, learn how to solve problems and think logically. Common sense is not common. I love that phrase. Domain expertise, have a bit of domain expertise. So if you're going into a field, this ties up to what Angela said. Align your what you're going to be learning, what you're going to be launching yourself into, align it with your strengths. Just don't just, if you are I'm going to put a broad example there. If you work in the financial industry, maybe going into the biological sciences might not be the initial first step. It might be that you can make your way into the biological sciences through another path or through another route. But regardless, to say, align it with your strengths, whatever you're learning, and then do your homework. So those are, if you missed it, how does someone break into the industry? Now, what are some of the soft and technical skills that are paramount for a person trying to break into this industry? Communication, influencing, try to get along with people, try to understand people. Don't go to a business and just give them a piece of code, give them a piece of output, and don't expect to explain it and tell them how it's going to be used. Learn that your audience doesn't have the same skills as you once you achieve a level that you can talk data analytics and data science. Practice problem solving. Ask questions as a data analyst. Ask questions. Unlearn and relearn new techniques. Teach yourself new things. Understand that you don't know everything about a field and that you're never going to do so. And if new things are coming up and they are useful for your work, they help your company, they help your mission, and they align with your strength, relearn the old stuff and learn the new one. Be able to work with people. So those are the most important technical and soft skills that we have mentioned. If you missed it, now we're going to jump into a few direct questions to our panelists. And I'm going to start with Shira. Shira, so what excites you the most about data analytics in the retail industry, and how is data analytics reshaping the global fashion industry? So very much the two together.
Okay, good. So I think to the first point, I really enjoy understanding people, understanding customers. So that's one of the reasons why I got into this particular field, is I love to understand why people behave a certain way and what they do. And I like to believe that people express their true self only with three particular industries. One is retail, the other one is gambling, and the third one is something I can't talk about in this forum, right? So you can imagine what the third one is. So basically, when you track data on them, people express their true self. They're not expressing their false self or pretend self. So when you shop, you're expressing your true self. When you gamble, you express your true self. So when you work with data like that, you can actually use that to model how people would behave. And as they often say, people are predictably boring and predictably irrational. So we behave a particular way as much as we think we're unique. And if you're able to find a way to code that out and algorithmize out, you can do a lot more things with it and make a lot more smarter decisions. So that's one thing that really excites me about working in retail. Also, the fast pace of how things change. You can also make change really fast. We're not a heavily regulated industry, which means that if you want to make a change, we can propose an idea. The idea can go into execution in a couple of weeks rather than a couple of months. So that's good. In terms of what it is changing, there are a lot of new things that's coming up from a retail point of view. So I can give you 3 examples to give a flavor of what kind of things we're doing. So from a customer point of view, what we're doing a lot more now is providing people a way to shop visually rather than shop through filters. So one big thing that happens on websites, so all of us have shopped online, is we die by filtering. So there's a filter and a filter for a filter and a filter for a filter. And so you don't want to have death by filtering. What if there is a seamless, more inspirational way to shop where you can visually shop something? And so that is something that is being facilitated by data. So a good example is, I see you're wearing a black t-shirt that says learn to code on a blue circle. If I take a photo of what you're wearing, can I find similar t-shirts that everyone can find? Say, for example, Michelle is wearing a red color top, and we take a photo of what Michelle is wearing. We can all find all the red tops that's there, and Michelle can also mention what style she likes to wear, how long the knees, the arm lengths need to be, how long the sleeves need to be. So all of that visual shopping experience is being facilitated through data. So that's one example of how data is changing that aspect of it. The other aspect of it is replenishment side of things. A lot of manual work and grunt work happens in replenishment. So in a retail space, what we do is we replenish stock items regularly. So replenishment basically means what items to buy, how much of it to buy, when to buy, how deep to buy, how many small, medium, large to buy, when to make an order for it. All of this can be automated through a process, through an algorithm and an automation process that can completely say, buy 15 units of S for learn to code, don't buy any M's or L's, everything is S or XL, whatever it is, right? So basically that kind of decision making through how people shop, though that can be automated, which basically means people don't have to do grunt work. People can put that work to, the buyers can do more inspirational work. They can go looking for better designs, better patterns and stuff like that. So that's the other aspect that's changing in the fashion side of things. And the third one that massively is changing in the fashion world is we also do a lot of logistics and operations, which people don't understand. Yes, we sell clothes, but we also deliver those clothes. And so to make that logistics possible, we need smarter pathing algorithms, smarter routing algorithms, smarter delivery algorithms, smarter staffing algorithms. So those are all things that are changing with data. So those are three examples in areas where data is changing how we operate in the fashion space.
Fantastic, unbelievable. Just like that level of customization for the consumer so that they just don't dive extremely deep into the filter until you find what you want, but just building these automating pipelines that deliver immediately, not only to the consumer, but also help your business. I mean, just understand logistics better. So order 10 smalls as opposed to 10 large, because that's what the demand is at. Fantastic. All right. So I'm going to pass the baton to Sanan. Sanan, you have led so many teams, so you could expect this question. What does it take to have a successful, analytically driven team composed of, let me switch it up a little bit, composed of junior analysts and then more senior analysts? How do you make that transition? How do you put those two different levels of experience together into one whole team?
Yeah, look, I think I would answer that question in multiple ways. The first one is, I would say from any enterprise point of view, you want to make sure that you have a team of 10 or 20 or 30 or 500. You need to make sure that the leverage is going to work for you, right? You don't want to have top heavy teams or bottom heavy teams. You want to make sure that you have the right number of people at the right level of skills and experience, so that when you do a project, you're not putting all juniors on one project or all seniors on one project. You have the right people to be able to do the right task. So I think, so you know, it's easy to understand this at a project level. It's harder to understand at a big team level, because there are a lot of unknowns in terms of what the team is expected to work on. But the fundamentals are the same. So when you have a team with the right number of experienced professionals and right number of people with no experience or with little experience, what happens is when you have a task, you know, that task might be suitable only for a very senior, very experienced person, or a task might have comprises of various components that can be done by people with varying level of experience. So, so in that case, if you have a team with the right composition of people, the senior person can actually own the task, but get the junior people to work on sub-components and then bring it all together and then do the top up, right? That way, everyone is actually challenged and everyone is having the opportunity to learn and grow. But if you actually don't get the mix right, what will happen is if you are expecting senior people to actually do junior people's task, they will get bored and they will get frustrated and they will be disengaged, right? And they will leave the team. Similarly, if you have a bunch of junior people and there are no senior people to actually learn from and to get guidance from, then the junior folks will get stressed out and they won't be able to deliver great outcomes and they'll get frustrated and they will leave as well. Okay, so I think the key thing is to make sure that you define the world that you operate in, you know, your service segment, your customers, the type of work you do, and define the skill sets and the capabilities you need to have. And then you can only plan for about 80% of this. 20% of this you can't plan because it's unknown, right? But if you can plan for the core and set up the team and have the right combination and have the right diversity in the team, everyone will learn, everyone will be challenged, and everyone will grow. And of course, commercially, it makes sense because you have got the right people working on the right things. And the last thing I would say is, you want to make sure that over a period of 2, 3, 4 years, your people have got headroom to move up. So if you have junior people, in 2, 3, 4 years, those people will actually grow with their experience and their learnings, and they will be able to do the stuff that the senior people were doing when they started. So therefore, having a right number of junior people in the team allows for growth and attrition, of course.
Fantastic. Get the mix right, keep them challenged, allow them to move up. Do a project based, don't just form a team just because. I mean, have a purpose behind it. Brilliant. Michelle, I got a question for you. So you have an impressive background in analytics and leading large groups of people. What rules of thumb have helped you the most over the years to measure the success of an analytical project involving maybe large amounts of teams, large teams or small teams? Like, what are those key things that you have learned throughout the years, through the projects that you have worked on, that allow you to measure the success of that project?
Sure. I think mostly what I like to see to know that something's been successful is that the business are happy with the work that you've done, or the business has had a problem solved and the business are using what you've created. So I think it's very important to make sure that the work we're doing isn't, oh, wow, we've got this code and we can do this wonderful stuff. It's like, no, but so what? What's the business problem we're solving? What's the need out there? So to measure, it doesn't matter if it's a small project or a large project, or is that we're building something out of the department. We're building something that people are going to be using, and they're using regularly, they're using on a day-to-day basis, and it is solving a problem, and it is creating value and being useful. So to me, that's probably the biggest success. And sometimes you do that where it might not be so tidy and it might not be the neatest code at the back end, but you know what, as long as it's serving the purpose, you can sort of clean it up a bit afterwards. So yeah, definitely is that you're doing something that is business-led, business first, is to why you're doing it, not just because it's fancy and bit of coding. And that can be sometimes the simplest thing. It doesn't have to be the fanciest analytics. It can be some simple reporting or some simple data that you're providing to someone. And if they're using it and it's serving the purpose, then you're successful.
Fantastic. Solve the problem first. Worry about how it looks later. Make sure you tackle the business issue first. Awesome. Angela, can you tell us a little bit more about how you got started into analytics, into the industry, into the role? Maybe not necessarily into the role, but into the trajectory that lead you to the role you're in right now. And what would you do differently if you were to do it all over again?
Raymond, that's a good question, but it's a bit, challenging question, because if you ask me how would I go back and do it again, how would I do it differently? That's very, very tricky question, because it's got a two sides, right? But to me, as I briefly touched on in the beginning, I was really lucky to meet great people on the journey. Like since I arrived in Australia, I met great mathematics teacher in high school, and great, lecturers and professors at university who's willing to really teach me, always, if I ask questions 3 times, always willing to answer, and didn't, really say, okay, you've asked too many questions, right? And once I started my career in the beginning, I worked as an intern at Combank. And again, there I met great, now it's called the data scientists, back then statisticians. So senior statisticians from different countries. And I was really curious because the way they whiz the data and everything, it was quite fascinating. And then I was able to only code SAS, but when I glimpsed, they are using different languages, it was quite interesting to learn how they do it, right? So I almost followed the statisticians and senior managers and ask, how did you learn how to do that? Because the thing is, I think I was lucky that there are people really encouraged me to be more curious about the things I do. So I always thought about okay, what's next? Because I was very comfortable about the role I was doing at Combank. It didn't mean that I want to stay there forever. Sometimes I want to stay longer, but then realize maybe how about explore different opportunity. So I was willing to move on to insurance company. And I worked at Songcorp as well, Sanan. Maybe we didn't eclipse, but it was a great company to work for. And I worked as a pricing analyst. And, again, I enjoyed. There are a bunch of great people, and I learned new pricing techniques. And I was really, good at, what I was doing. But after 3 years, I wanted to explore new work. And I took the new opportunity. And then I went back to Combank again, and then met there. It was a great thing because I learned and grew. And when I went back to Combank, I started working with the senior statisticians that I used to really admire. And it was a great experience because they welcomed me back and they're willing to teach me more and then willing to work together. And again, it was another great experience. But because I enjoyed so much, I didn't stay there, forever. So after 3-4 years, I decided to move into the insurance company. I moved on to IAG, and there I really got my hands on in data science. And I think when I look back my career, I think there were always people, the managers or mentors or the people, my colleagues, the people really, or the motivation for me to look into new opportunity. And but when I look back my career where I am now, what I can do differently, maybe I would have gone to overseas to explore the new experience. I didn't go to overseas and worked in different countries apart from Australia, right? So I think that's the only part, I missed, I guess, because I didn't go to Singapore to work, or I didn't go to US or UK to have a different, work experience. But luckily, the work I do with the non-profit organization as a Women in AI ambassador gives me opportunity to work with the global people for the volunteer work. So I work normally 3 to 5 projects with the global partners, whether it's from UK or sometimes with Nice, sometimes with Singapore. I work with people who's volunteering using data talent to help people and to work AI for good. So it gives me opportunity to do meaningful work, and I think that's it's quite fulfilling when you think about it. So, well, I think explore new opportunity and go abroad, and maybe you can experience new things that I haven't been able to done for myself at all.
Fantastic, awesome, and I love the first thing that you said. You found a mentor and somebody that was willing to teach you and lead you throughout the company. And that's fantastic. And then your career jump started. So this is extremely important. And as a personal opinion, I'm not the one doing the talking here, but I feel like I'm going to go back to what Michelle said. When you put your work out there, when you show your work, when you show what you can do, then people might give you comments. And that also serves the purpose of having a mentor, being able to get comments, being able to get feedback. So that ties up to another very important point. Angela, I'm going to put you, I'm going to keep the baton with you. And I want to ask you, since you have gone from one company to the next and then back into your old one, and then you seek out the mentors that you had, I want to ask you, how important is diversity in an analytically driven work environment? Have you experienced this? And if so, how important is it to you?
Thank you, Raman. Diversity in the team is so important. So I'm not talking about, diverse and inclusive AI here, the bias and, fairness and all these, the things very important to be mentioned. I'm talking about the team having a diverse team on purpose is very, very important, especially in this era of artificial intelligence, because a lot of product and, service are based on the algorithm. So when you think about the team, the working on the particular project, not diverse, then because even though you automate a lot of process, you can't avoid the human touch, which means the person who's preparing the data set to build a model are made up of only one kind of cultural background, or whether it's race or age or even the experience, then it's you can't avoid having one kind of perspective really based to create this the model, because you'll be easily forgotten bringing particular features because you just don't know what you don't know, right? So for that reason, these days, it's very important. It's almost like mandatory. You need to design a team very diverse and mindful about you are having really different, diverse background, people, because you are serving very diverse background of customers. And for many reasons, it is really crucial. So I think it's a really joint effort. Like, you have to get the leadership team realize that's, really important. So you have to bring the people and culture leaders together, and you have to bring the managers who's really seeing that, that it's really important, the perspective you need to consider, and bring, embedding that kind of diverse, team culture in the organization is mandatory. It's not like optional anymore.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So getting different perspectives is crucial. You need different perspectives if you want to break the status quo, or how you mentioned, like a lot of companies are automating things, and a lot of these things are through algorithms. If those algorithms are based on decisions that inherit the bias that we have, well, then that's probably one of the key reasons why you need diversity as opposed to less diversity. I love that answer. Okay, so let's start wrapping things up. Shira, I'm gonna go with you. In a world where more and more companies are building their business models with data at its core, what excites you the most about this trend, and what concerns do you have about it?
Okay, so what excites me more is humans can get to do more human work and not grunt work, and computers can do more the grunt work. So that excites me the most, because I think humans have a lot of potential. And the best example is humans used to carry everything around till we invented something called tractors and machines which carry things around. Then humans used to do all the heavy lifting and agriculture. And now we have smart things to do smarter things, smart equipment to do smarter things. And I think that excites me more about data. Data can change what work we do on day-to-day basis. What scares me the most, again, is a famous story, right? Which is, and I like to remember these things in the form of stories. So once a farmer had a horse, and the horse ran away, and then the neighbors came to him and said, "What terrible luck." And then the farmer said, "Maybe." And then the next day, the horse came back with 2 other wild horses. And then the neighbors came and said, "What amazing luck do you have?" And he said, "Maybe." And then the third day, what happened was the farmer's son rode one of the wild horses and broke his leg. And then they again came back to commiserate and said, "What terrible luck." And they said, "Maybe." And then the fourth day, the army came through to recruit people for the army. And the son had a broken leg, so he couldn't be recruited. They said, "What amazing." So basically what the story tells is, people, instead of taking everything, what happens with data is you get instant insights, and people tend to react immediately, which you shouldn't be doing. The one thing with data is you need to take your time and not react immediately. So sometimes organizations tend to go to immediate stimuli and immediate response to stimuli, which kind of throws the whole point of having data and measured decision making. And so that is what scares me. So while data is penetrating every single area in the business, people's ability to know when to respond and when not to respond, I think that is the part that's becoming crucial. So that is what worries me the most.
Okay, and then I'm actually going to do a 3-part question to close things out and allow the audience to ask questions. So the last question, Shira, before I move to the next person, what's your final call to action to people wanting to move into this industry but not so sure, or sort of like undecided? What's your call to action to people wanting to move in and not 100% there yet?
So I always remember the Ratatouille. If you watched the Ratatouille movie, the famous saying in the Ratatouille movie is, the chef says, "Anyone can cook." I believe anyone can data science. So that is my call to action. You don't have to have done a course, and you don't have to have certification. You don't have to have years of experience. You just need to have the willingness to learn, and then willingness to pick skills up, and then you can be in the data science space. I think that is my call to action. Don't worry about having a degree or a certification and stuff like that. As long as you can pick the skills up, you can be in the data science space.
Fantastic. Okay, Michelle, I'm going to pass it to you. In a world where more and more companies are building their business model with data at its core, what excites you the most, and what concerns do you have about it? And lastly, what's your final call to action to those wanting to do the switch into data analytics?
Yeah, sure. I think what excites me is that over the years, I'm constantly trying to convince management and leadership to invest more money in the data analytics space. So there's always a huge number of opportunities and a lot of use cases and a lot of things I'm excited about and want to do. And it's always like not having enough resources, not getting enough funds, not sort of, you know, the having that investment by the business as much as I'd like to. So I think it's, as it starts to change a little bit more, competitors are getting into the data analytics space and are doing smart things. Your companies that you work for have to keep up. So I'm excited by having, I guess, the growth in investment and the understanding of how important it is, because I think there's just so many things and opportunities out there and things you can do with data that, you know, I want to get into more of it. So that's one of the things that excites me. Then something that would concern me a little bit is sometimes the unrealistic expectations. So it's not a matter of just, great, let's hire a couple of people, start a couple of projects, in a couple of months we'll be a data-driven organization. And I think sometimes people and management that may not be in this space don't realize that things do take a bit of time, that you can't just magically do everything in the data analytics. It just takes time to build things up, and so sometimes, and I hear that a little bit, you know, people even at job interviews where I'm thinking, oh, I think they're a bit unrealistic with what they think we can do in that short amount of time. But so that's probably the bit that concerns me. The last question was talking about what's final call to action. I would suggest test the waters, try out something. Find out if data space, the analytics space, is something you're really interested in. I think Angela sort of said that before. You don't want to go into it and thinking the money's in there or it's a good job and find that it's bores you to tears. So I think you want to sort of test the waters, try something out, see if it is something you can get interested in and passionate about. Maybe it's you've been following all these COVID graphs and statistics and you know, that rocks your boat, and you found that quite fascinating to see all this data out there and what the stories tell you and what the graphs sort of say and what's the prediction. You know, find out if that is something that you're interested in and something that you think you could sustain a career in. So that was my call to action. Test it out first. Stay in your current job if you can, but just test it out.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Michelle. Sanan, what excites you the most about this trend where every company's business model is having data at its core? And what concerns do you have about this trend? And what's your final call to action for those who want to make the jump or haven't decided yet?
Sure. So look, I think for me, what excites me is the Googles and the Facebooks and the Amazons of the world. If you take data and AI capability out, those companies don't exist. At the core of those companies, they started with data and AI. Once the CTO of Amazon was asked a question about analytics algorithms or AI algorithms, in what operational side of Amazon have they got algorithms implemented? This question was asked 7-8 years ago. His response was, in what part don't we have AI? You know, the company was actually designed and started with AI and data at the core. And those companies have grown phenomenally in the last 10-15 years, and they are expanding their wings and getting into everything and anything. That is actually the minority. The majority are companies with legacy, a lot of legacy, and they don't have the flexibility. And data is actually happen to be a nice to have. Like what Michelle said, now a lot of the legacy companies are feeling the heat, and they are realizing that for their future, in order to future-proof their organizations, they have to really pick up the game with data analytics. Otherwise, they won't be around for too long. So what excites me is that the people who are looking to enter into this profession, or the people who are already invested in this profession, I think we have got a bright future ahead. The thing that worries me the most is actually lack of action. While there is so much of focus and investment in organizations' ability to create insights, you know, you get the best cloud platform, go hire the best data scientist, buy the state-of-the-art technology and tools, do whatever, do everything and invest, and then you create some unbelievable predictive and prescriptive and all sorts of insights. but getting people to do something different with their insight is the hardest challenge I have faced in my life. And that is the most frustrating thing for somebody who actually plays across in the end-to-end spectrum, the start to end of the analytics journey. Because if you're a data engineer and you just do the engineering work and you hand it over to the next person, you probably don't see what happens ultimately. But if you actually really see what happens to all these next best action models and all sorts of stuff that people have done in data science, how many of those things really get utilized? And whether the business is serious about utilizing that and really driving value from it is the thing that concerned me the most. Perhaps the last question is, sorry, Ramon, I missed the last question.
No, it's fine. What's your call to action for those like wavering, those who want to make the transition into this field but are sort of like undecided? What's your call to action to that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is already said and covered. I think the only thing I'll add to it is actually search within. You should know what you're passionate about. You need to know what your inner calling is. Mm-hmm. If you don't know, figure that out first. And then figure out whether data analytics is the thing that is going to help you fulfill your inner calling and your purpose.
Fantastic, fantastic. All right, so Angela, lastly, with you, in a world where more and more companies are building the business models with data at its core, what excites you the most and what concerns do you have about it? And lastly, what's your final call to action to those wanting to make the switch but sort of undecided? And I'm sure, and you have alluded to this quite a bit throughout the evening, so please.
Thank you. Thanks, Ramon. I think I should mention that I love what I do. I think I'm so lucky to be in the era of technology and all this artificial intelligence. And I'm so lucky that I really love the mathematics because all my mathematics teachers were brilliant. Since I was in primary school, I'm from Korea, and my first primary school mathematics teacher was brilliant. Never taught mathematics as just a formula. But back then already, that my teachers, they knew how to teach mathematics as a number storytelling. So I never learned the mathematics as doing the memorizing formula or working out. It's a story. So once you remember the story, then you never forget because it stays with you forever. And it's just, thinking about, looking at different angles, right? So to me, what most excites me is about the movement from the technology giants, how they are really considering ethical AI and responsible AI as very important things. I'm so glad to see that. And it's really exciting to see how Microsoft, Salesforce, IBM, all these tech giants are really looking into pair, the fair algorithm, how to, even Microsoft recently released the fair learn, which is very important, how to look at, the bias in algorithm in a model. And the effort is really welcoming. So it's a good thing to see. So it really excites me. But at the same time, still it's very worrying that because there are so many blind spots, because there are so many wrong uses and harms and all this misinformation used on digital space, and we don't know how to really go about it. So it's a big still homework there. So a lot of technologists are working together to try to solve it, and but still there's a bit of a concern because there are some problems, and these days it looks like we are chasing the tail rather than really preparing beforehand, right? But I can see that it's going to improve. The call to action might be, as I think Michelle mentioned, before you jump onto the job or some new area, test the water, make sure that it is what you will like it, because YOLO, you only live once, right? So you might as well find your call or calling or something that you might enjoy, because everyone has different talent. We are all made up with special talent. So just finding that special talent in you, and really try to find what kind of jobs available. And obviously data analytics is that it's the era with technology, so it's the area you should be going. So I think all these points, all these wonderful panelists they shared, I think they are all valid and very important. So I think that's that's for me. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the wonderful answers. If you missed it, here's the recap of what has been said. So with every company having data at its core, what excites the panelists the most? Humans can do more work, more human work, and machines can do more machine things. Lots of opportunities, and companies are investing more and more. So many things that you couldn't do before, you can do them now with data. In what part do we not have data at the core now? So lots of legacy companies are going into this specific industry because they don't have that. That wasn't their business model before. So they have to adjust and advance. And to do that, they're going to have to hire people that knows this, that are adapting to this moving industry. So there is a bright future ahead. And with so many companies moving into this space, I mean, that's definitely one of the reasons to join in the field, or what excites Sanan the most. It is a fun and rewarding field to be in. Angela absolutely loves what she does. I love what I do, and I'm sure everyone in this panel loves what they do. So second one, what concerns do they have? Don't react to everything on the spot. And this was Shira's answer, and then this ties up to Michelle's answer. To Angela's answer. There are too many blind spots and misinformation out there, so be careful. Then the unrealistic expectations of companies. So if you are a hiring manager and you are in this event tonight, check the expectations for the roles. Don't look for the unicorn. That's I'm actually putting that one out there. This is not magic. So getting people to be more flexible with the skills and what they can do. That's another thing that concerns. Like, don't get, this ties up to what Sanan said earlier. Don't build a tower, build a pyramid. Try to get the skills that you need to a broader level, as opposed to just specializing in one thing that might be changed later on tomorrow or next week. Lastly, the call to action for those of you who want to move into this industry, who haven't found the proper channel to do so, or the right incentive to move into it. If everyone can cook, everyone can do data analytics, everyone can do data science. So if you're undecided, test the waters, find out if this space is where you want to be, and find out what you're passionate about first. Also, once you find out what that is, figure out if data can help you achieve it, and if data can help you get there faster. So again, find your passion. And it is a fascinating field, and it's fascinating all the things that we can do with data nowadays. So with that said, I'd like to open it to questions. I think we have time for about one question from the crowd to the panelists. And then at the end, once we check out the project, Kevin's project, and we ask Kevin some questions, then we'll see if we have more time to put more questions to the panelists. So Brendan or Dallas, what questions do we have for the panelists?
Yeah, there's been quite a few coming in there, Ramon. Look, I'll go to one from Lorena, which was, how easy is it to get a job in data analysis if you don't have any experience? Now, I know the panelists have sort of alluded to certain elements of this, but I think that's probably fairly pivotal to what a lot of people sitting, observing this webinar are thinking to themselves. So is there anything particular that you guys can shed light on that?
Yeah, do any of the panelists, do any of you have? Sorry, I was muted. Does any one of the panelists have anything else that you would like to share about how easy or how tough is it really to break into the field, to apply for that first position? Say, let's switch the context a bit. Once you have obtained the skills and you feel a little bit more comfortable that you can apply, how easy is it? How difficult is it? Do you need perseverance? What do you guys, any of you?
Maybe I'll take that. So my response is, it is bloody difficult to get into the field if you have got no experience. Okay, that's the starting point. So it's not going to be like just because you have learned the code, you're going to be given an opportunity. You need to be more in terms of, you need to be clear on what is your value proposition. Why should you be hired? Why are you better than anyone else? Right? You know, what will you bring to the team? Right? So you got to be absolutely clear on that. You need to be very clear on what your strengths and weaknesses are, because when you get an interview, that's the question people ask you. You got to be very, very clear. And like what Michelle said, you need to be very clear on whether the projects that you worked on, the little things that you have done, get out there and get some publicly available data and build some dashboards and show that you have got a keen interest in this industry. Even though you haven't been given experience, but you have created your experience in your own backyard. People get excited when they see that commitment. Okay, they say, yes, I haven't worked for anyone, but look what I have done with publicly available data. These are the insights. These are the things I've done that will differentiate you from anyone else. And of course, when you go to the interview, be prepared for the interview.
Absolutely.
Those are the pieces of advice I can give you. It is tough to get in there. The great news is the demand is only growing. And there is a supply shortage. Australian universities are not producing enough IT graduates. So we don't have enough people. So therefore, there are plenty of opportunities in the market. But you need to have a very strong proposition to win.
Awesome. Brendan, any other questions to pass them along to the other panelists?
Yes, quite a few. Hang on. Yeah, so look, this is something that I'm not sure if there's generally a little confusion about. Milad asked, can I ask the panel if anyone was ever involved in data science or were they strictly data analytics? And I think there is a sort of misunderstanding about where the line between those two sits.
Yep.
So maybe we could get a bit of
Let's untangle the line. Shira, would you like to take this one?
Thank you. All right. So the way I look at it is data science is more of an umbrella term for a lot of things, is how I've looked at it. So while the way I think about data science, there are three aspects to data science. One is automating stuff, one is analyzing stuff, and one is algorithmizing stuff. So that's how I break data science, the three A's of data science. Automating stuff could be also data science, which is trying to, the same repeatable decisions can be automated away. And analyzing is something that you can analyze, understand, strategically figure out what is happening with the business. And algorithmize is where you can apply something at scale. So that's how I typically break it down. And yes, we've done bits and pieces of all of them. And we typically call that a full stack data science, where we work at the Iconic and Global Fashion Group, where people can work on all three areas of the spectrum. And depending on
we lost Shira there, I think. Or can everyone else still hear him?
No, he's gone.
Okay, so
I would say if you talk to Kevin, if you talk to Kevin, who's going to talk next, you will get an answer that it's not that difficult to get into data space. So Kevin came in from a completely different space and got into data at the Iconic. And so I think if you're at the right place and if you are willing to put your hands up, it's not really hard to get to the data space. As long as you're willing to take a few steps down, you're willing to make the sacrifice and you're willing to get in a new space, it's not going to be really hard. Maybe in a lateral position, on a position where you're a manager, you're trying to move into data science manager. I'm not too sure how easy or difficult that would be.
Awesome. Fantastic. Okay, Michelle, I have one for you from the crowd. So since you mentioned, you were the first one in this panel to mention, put a project out there, show your work. Krishna asked, how big should a project be? Should such a project be? How complex, how difficult, or should you start putting it out there step by step? What do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
It doesn't have to be huge. I think it's just teach yourself as you're teaching yourself. Start with something small, and I guess grow bigger and bigger. And I guess it's almost like you'd perhaps build a portfolio of work that you can, when you're going to an interview, for example, the questions will be asked of, show me where you've done something, show me an example of. So if you can show, if it doesn't have to be the largest project, it depends on what time you've got it. It depends what you're learning. Now, if you're doing a course, then that's often, you might have a project at the end of that course that you can then show, well, here's an example of what I've done. So I guess it depends. It's just, start small and gradually build up your skills and build up that sort of portfolio so that you can go to an interview and answer and saying, well, I did this as a little side piece of work. Here's an example. I built this in X tool, and it doesn't matter, you maybe didn't use it in your company, but if you can at least show you that you've thought through, you've been able to do something from end to end, then that's valuable and that can be useful going for a job.
Fantastic. And then I have one last one from the audience, and I'm going to throw it at you, Angela. So what are the typical phases in a data project, in a data related project? And how do you determine how much time do you allocate to each phase? Say, I'm going to throw a very well-known case, cleaning the data, visualizing. So can you speak about the phases of a project and how much time do you tend to spend in some of them, not necessarily all of them?
Well, thank you, Raymond. Thanks for the question. Yes, when you data cleaning, data massaging, the preparation job, surprisingly, that takes a lot of time, and that's not very super exciting job either. So it's quite manual, and you know, a lot of time spent for the data preparation. But nevertheless, it's very important to step. And in terms of time spending, actually building the model and selecting the features and creating the algorithm wouldn't take that much compared to data preparation and cleaning, and sometimes even sourcing the data from the you know, within the, you know, organization, because you know, it's hard to sometimes, you know, source the data and it's not readily available. Then you have to spend more time to actually, you know, obtaining the data and talking to the right people and try to work, you know, make sure that, you know, it can be delivered, or you can actually get it in a timely manner that includes access and everything, right? So you, in terms of timeline, it's really important to put in a bit of a buffer time when you plan the project, because always, you know, you need that extra time to make sure that, you know, you can deliver on time. So rather than underestimating the time to prepare deliver the project in a timely manner, you rather try to put the extra buffer time, you know, at each, you know, stages of the data project, so that make sure that, you know, you can actually deliver it rather than, missing the deadline, because it's quite important, because setting the right expectation is very crucial. And, you know, again, you know, you spend a lot of time to preparing data. So maybe it's almost like you spend the 70% of the time actually preparing and getting ready the data, and the rest is building the model, testing and comparing the important, you know, the facts, you know, to see that, you know, the model is as accurate as possible. And then the rest is different story. But yeah, but you need to be willing to get your, you know, hands dirty, people say it, so that willing to put in the time for the not very interesting, you know, process. But it's so crucial that, so you need to really be ready for that.
Okay, awesome. So, and I mean, the bottom line is the phases might take whatever they take, but you got a deadline for a project. So make sure whatever they take, deliver first, and then worry about how much time you allocate in each. All right, awesome. So Kevin, without further ado, we'd love for you to take it away and show us your project and what you did with it and so forth.
Yeah, sure. So, hey, everybody. My name is Kevin. First of all, thanks for actually having me. This is pretty surreal being able to be here. But yeah, I'm really excited to actually show a project that I did. And, you know, I thought I'd start by actually talking about the actual problem, because I feel like what we were talking about today was actually a lot about the problem and understanding that, right? So hopefully that sort of helps you guys out, understand how, you know, to think as an analyst or a scientist or anybody working in data pretty much. So let me set the scene. So about a month and a half ago, my fiance and I were like, you know what, maybe we should try to move out and buy a new place. So we did the first thing, which is let's go to domain, let's go to real estate and whatever. Let's try putting in some like random suburbs, for example. And so let's go, and we see a whole bunch of houses come up. And at this point, a whole bunch of questions sort of come up in my head already, right? So if I look at a certain listing and it says, oh, this house is being sort of, they're asking for 1.1 or 1.2 mil or something like that. How do I know whether or not this is a good price? How do I know whether or not they're charging too much, right? And what tells me that, oh, this is the right price point for a 4-bedroom house in this certain area? And, you know, like fast forward to now, I think over the last month, we spent more than like a week of actual time of going through every single suburb, going through each one. I've seen about this one 28 times already and going through all the photos and doing all that sort of stuff. And so I thought, isn't there a better way to do this? Because I cannot afford all the stressing all the time. So I just did some Googling and hey, guess what? There's actually a way to solve this, and it's called web scraping. And you know, some of you guys might have already done this. And disclaimer, I am not the best coder at all. I've only started doing Python about 2 to 3 years, and like Shira as well. I started from scratch and just learned myself, and just did a lot of trial and error. So,
Kevin, would you mind zooming in a little bit, please?
Yeah, sure. One second. How's that?
Oh, fantastic. Awesome. All right. So, yeah, walk us through how do you went about it?
Yeah. So in terms of web scraping, all we're doing is pretty much grabbing all of the HTML code, which is pretty much the code that sets up an actual web page. And we're putting it through a package called Beautiful Soup, which helps us sort of go through and parse the data so we can sort of understand everything. So if anyone's ever gone to a website and I've done this heaps of times where I accidentally press F12 and this thing pops up and a whole bunch of code comes up. So this actually tells us, what is actually on the page and the actual item and the data itself. So what this actually helps us to do is actually figure out, I can actually run this entire page and get all of the prices, all of the addresses and everything through it, right? And so, yeah, so let's run it. So what I've done here is just gone through our homepage in domain.com.au. And by the way, not every website sort of lets us do this, but I checked the domain. I think we're all good. We're also recording this. This is a bit scary for me. But yeah, so I ran it through the URL. There's a GET request, and we actually see this is what that homepage actually looks like in terms of HTML.
So that's the skeleton of a website, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, awesome.
There's a whole bunch of stuff. When you press accept cookies, that's pretty much telling this guy's, hey, we can track you for everything. So that's that. So like I said, my problem was I didn't want to have to go through a whole bunch of suburbs and go through every single little tiny listing that we had. And so what I did was, just to make this simple, right? I put in a whole bunch of suburbs in here, like say, I don't know, something like this, or Parramatta, or something like that, right? Notice when you search, it will tell me exactly what the URL is. Yeah. So I've just added that into a list, into a URL. And I've noticed that, when you're searching for a whole bunch of suburbs, you can see a whole bunch of pages. And in this case, I want to loop through how many pages as I want. So I can get every single listing that I can into a very nice flat data. And again, this is echoing what Angela and pretty much what everyone in the panel said about data cleansing. I spent nearly all of my time doing this, which is just cleaning the data. So what this is doing is actually going through every single one of these elements. So if you go through here, you can see that there's an entire element here that has the actual picture, the guide. This one actually is a carousel and it sort of goes through other ones. These ones are sort of like the paid ones, I guess. And so, yeah, what this script does is it goes through each one and it tries to find which one is the one that holds the address, and then put it into a data frame. Which one holds the suburb, which one holds the postcode, which one holds the prices, so on and so forth. And so if I run this, what it's saying is it's scraping page 1, and then it's scraping page 2, and page 3, and page 4. And we'll do all of that. Again, don't be intimidated by this. It looks a bit long, and it could probably be a lot shorter, and Ramon's probably already thinking this guy probably can do a lot better things, but yeah.
So you could probably say that it took you a bit to put it as nicely tabulated as it is at the moment, right? It was many cells and a little loop over here, another little loop over there. And then once everything was put together and everything was working, then you go back and refactor. So this ties so with what Michelle mentioned. Don't be afraid of, just having the most perfect thing out there. It doesn't have to be the most complex, but you got to get it done. And then worry about making it pretty. So awesome, fantastic. So please.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you see here is the result of all that scraping. I've done a bit of data cleansing as well. So when we say data cleansing, this is exactly it. So we can see here that this is the actual box that the price was in, and there's a whole bunch of listings where it doesn't have the actual price. It will just say contact the agent or by negotiation or for auction or something like that. At the same time, the actual amount would also be in a string, right? It's $495, 000. So then there's a whole bunch of little tiny code here just to clean it, just to replace it, and just to only grab the actual numbers from there. And that's what you see here, which is price for integer. And so that's a bit of data cleaning there. So pretty much I've been able to scrape 313 listings within half a minute just then, rather than going through each one, which is what me and what my fiance was doing back then. And so this gives us a very nice flat data set to work with. And again, if you want to be complicated, we can also run a whole bunch of algorithms here if we want to try and predict, a certain sale of one of the certain addresses or something like that. And this is done over the real estate that is listed. It's actually not done on the sold, so we can do that as well. But the idea is that we have the power to do stuff like this, which is cool. And then the last part, I just put in a few scatter plots. Again, I think as an analyst or as a data scientist, you have to be able to speak to your data and sort of explain it, right? So I said in the beginning, some of my questions was, what are some of the characteristics of these houses that I know might be affecting the prices? And how do I know what are the thresholds? So a very common question is, if I go from a 4 to 5 bedroom houses, do I see a very big jump in prices? And this chart, you can sort of clearly see that it doesn't really show that. In fact, it sort of shows it might be trending down a little bit after the 5th bedroom. Same thing with the bathrooms, from 2 to 3, and as well as if you plot the price against land size as well, you'd sort of expect that the bigger the land, the higher the price might be, but that's not always the case, because you can see that there are some very expensive houses here that are half the sizes of a house that are across here. So yeah, it sort of just helps me see all of those data points very quickly. Again, it sort of helps me answer some of those initial questions I've had. Can I improve on this? Hell yes. We can sky's the limit here. You can add in more Google APIs. You can figure out how long it takes to go to work. Again, you can actually run an algorithm, because pretty much real estate data is a very nice data set to train a model on. And yeah, is that okay, Ramon?
No, fantastic. So I guess the $1 million question, no pun intended, is some of them costed about $1 million. What was the $1 million answer? Did you both figure it out, or has it helped you narrow down the group of houses that you will now go and see in person, as opposed to just going one by one every weekend?
It's definitely helped, actually. We are still looking at, unfortunately, because of other reasons, but it has definitely, cut my time in by more than half. So
I think that's a heck of an answer. It has cut my time more than half of just searching and searching over answers. All right, so I got a couple of questions for you. Wonderful. First off, wonderful project. I think this alludes to what all of the speakers mentioned. Test the waters, and you don't have to be the most prominent coder. You have to be. I'll tell you this personally. I think that one of the biggest skills that as a coder you need to learn how to Google stuff up, and you need to learn how to Google well, and that is an extra skill for coding that I cannot tell you how important it is. I cannot tell you how key skills this is. So anyone could go out there and find an implementation of something similar of what they would like to have and try to do them themselves. So this alludes to testing the waters. Anyhow, before I digress, I have a very important question for you, Kevin. So coming from an engineering and finance background, how did you learn the tools and skills needed to sort of successfully tackle this approach or pivot in your career? Because my understanding is that you switched majors and then you went into finance and then you went into this particular industry. And while on the job, you train yourself and then move on to a more analytical role. Is that so? Can you tell us a bit more about that trajectory?
Yeah, definitely. So I actually studied just engineering, materials engineering in university. And I figured I didn't really like the whole manufacturing industry, especially in Australia as well. So I decided to pick up a finance degree. But at the same time, I started working for Woolworths as an intern, doing a whole bunch of stuff in the supply chain department. And there we made a lot of dashboards. Everything was on Excel, a lot of copying, a lot of pasting, a lot of just redundant work, in my opinion. You know, you're just like putting this specific data in this specific cell, making sure the formats are correct and all that sort of stuff. And we managed to automate all of that by using a BI tool called Click. And yeah, and that's where I sort of found my love of SQL, of data, and understanding databases as well. At the same time, I was still studying full-time as well. So I was doing a finance degree, but when I was doing all this, I picked up a minor in information systems as well. And I think that was the best part of my career so far, because it cemented everything that I did at work. So, you know, when I'll be looking at a database or at a table and it was structured in a certain way, when I go to uni at night, it would actually tell me why, coincidentally. And yeah, it just helped me cement everything that I was doing at work as well. And yeah, then after that, I really wanted to go to a small company and have more breadth, like what Sinan said. You know, understanding more of how the business works, not from just a supply chain perspective, but from finance, from marketing, from sales and buying as well. And that's when I went to the Iconic and I just did a whole bunch of stuff there as well in the logistics and finance area. So
fantastic. So now we got a bit of your background. We know how you transition from one side of the industry to the other. We know how you use data analytics, not just at work and how you learn it, but also how you use it in your personal life through the project you show. So what advice do you have for people who are thinking about taking the first step into data analytics? Just like you didn't know that you weren't going to find when you first joined materials engineer, that you didn't know that you were going to like it or not, but then you found data analytics and let alone you like it and now is your career. So for somebody sort of in the same position who maybe don't know about this industry or does know about this industry, certainly because they're in this event, what's your call to action for them or what's your advice for them?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm echoing everyone else's call to action as well by saying stay curious. But I think I'll add on to that by saying have fun with it. You know, like back then in uni, I could play games all night long and then go to uni with like 2 hours of sleep, and I wouldn't think that I'm working hard because I'm playing games. And you know, that's the same with all the sort of stuff that we do in data as well. You know, if you're actually having fun and you're learning and you're liking what you're doing, it doesn't feel like, oh, you have to do this and you have to learn this, you have to get this course. It's more like, oh, I just learned how to scrape a whole bunch of real estate and it's been really, really helpful and I can help other people do that as well. So yeah, man, just have fun with it.
Awesome. And so I got a question from the audience. So Michael says, how long do you think it took you top to bottom in your project for the searching for houses?
Seriously? How long did it take?
Yeah. So how much time did it took you to finish it from when you started putting the code together and then when you finish up and created the visualizations?
This took me about one Saturday, to be honest. I was just playing around and, you know, the way I work is as soon as something works, I have another idea of what I can do to add on top of it. And then it keeps on going and going and going from there. And yeah, it took me about a day to get to this point to be able to, you know, recognize all the different HTML objects and put it into a nice data frame and flatten it and everything like that. So
awesome. And so a specific question on the tooling. Why did you choose Python, or what made you decide to choose Python?
Yeah, actually, well, personally, I love Python. It was sort of my gateway programming language, I guess, if you can call it that. I never learned any other programming languages before that, but it it's very easy to pick up and it makes sense. It's also an object-oriented programming language, so it sort of helps me understand, like what a class is, what instantiation is, what superclass is, and that sort of stuff. So it wasn't there, but yeah, it's taught me a lot about computer science in general as well. So
awesome. And then we got another question from Matthew. He says, how much Python and IT did you know beforehand when you decided to create to get data for your own personal real estate project? How much where do you say your skills were before you did any personal project for that matter?
That's hard to say. I will probably quantify that using time. And at this point, I've got about probably 2.5 to 3 years of Python and like actual IT skills. My first side project, I only had less than a year, to be honest. And I probably could have started it earlier if I wasn't too, lazy, I guess. But yeah, there's nothing stopping you from literally Googling how to web scrape this. And that's actually how I started this. A whole bunch of articles on Medium, and it's really helpful that everyone likes to share as well in the community. So
okay, and then I think I'm gonna do one last question here, and this one comes from Roshan. So do you need a big amount of mathematics to get into data analytics?
Into data analytics, I wouldn't say so, to be honest. You just need understand basic arithmetic, but if you want to go more in depth into the more algorithmic and the machine learning and predictive modeling side, definitely understanding calculus, understanding derivatives and partial derivatives is very, very important. But besides that, yeah, for this sort of stuff, there was barely any maths, right? Like, in fact, there was no maths. So
awesome. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for sharing with us your project today. I think a lot of people, especially and myself included, we took a lot of good things from the project, especially if you have something that is just taking you a while, figure out if you can automate it. And like you said, have fun with it. Don't just do it just to do it, but make sure it's something fun and something that's going to keep you engaged. So I really, really would like to thank you for sharing your project with us. And I would also really like to thank the panel. I mean, this has been an awesome set of responses. And if you didn't get to hear the very beginning when we talked about how does one break into, since this is the reason why you came to this panel, to this discussion, I'd like to finish up before I pass it on to Brendan by reiterating what the panelists have said about how to break into the industry. Focus on breadth in this field as opposed to depth. Think about the pyramid. Don't think about the tower. Don't get too specialized in a very narrow skill that might be taken away tomorrow. Take initiative. You got to take initiative. Just like Kevin said here, it took me a Saturday to put this together. I saw the need to get into it, and he just did it. So do something. Show your work. Once you get to doing something, show it. Don't be afraid of criticism. Don't be afraid of getting feedback from people. That's how we learn. We get feedback. So learn to code, learn how to solve problems, and think logically. Remember, common sense is not common. No course teaches you to do that. So try to get a bit of domain expertise of where you want to go. So if right now you work in insurance and you want to become a data analyst, maybe you go to a finance industry. Maybe you stay in the finance industry as a pivotal first step, and then you transition to a different industry. Of course, that's not clear-cut rule. It's just that domain expertise is very valuable. Make sure you know why do you want to get into data analytics and align it with your strength. And then lastly, do your homework. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And how are you going to accomplish? I think these are fantastic ways of getting you started or helping you get started and make up your mind if you want to get into this industry. A last bit about myself that I think I figure I should have started with this, but now it's taking me to the very end. I am Coder Academy's lead data science educator. I also work as a research associate at a university called NCAT. There I work with terabytes of data, and usually that I cannot put in my computer, so I use AWS. I build machine learning models there, especially to tackle an unheard of question, which is how do we devise the way to recreate the hierarchy of a company? Why is this useful? Think about a question where the answer lies on the structure of your company, how information crosses it. And if you were able to do a counterfactual analysis to why something that you don't know about might have happened. Anyhow, if that sounds complicated, it's a nightmare. So that's why it's called research. But that's a little bit about myself. I'm going to be teaching the next data analytics course here at Coder Academy, and I'm really, really excited about what we have put together. We have 8 speakers for 7 sessions, and all of them are unbelievable data professionals. 2 of them are part of my team at NCI, 2 professors, sorry, one at NCI and another one at London Business School. So I'm really excited for them to come and talk to you. If you join us in the course, you saw that Kevin shared Jupyter Notebooks, that Jupyter Lab actually, which is a combination of Jupyter Notebooks, and it's called an integrated development environment. Think about it as the utensils you use to eat. You need utensils to, or you need infrastructure. You need something in which to code, just like you need something in which to put your food on. So the integrated development environment is sort of the plate where you put your code. So that is what you will be using in this course, and you will be using Python. So I'm really excited to bring that to you. And with that, I'll pass it to Brendan. Thank you so much to the panelists. It's been an absolute honor to guide this conversation this evening. And I really look forward to staying in touch with all of you and seeing what else you do in your career. So Brendan, take it along.
Yes, Ramon, brilliant. Thank you very much. Look, before we move on to other questions or anything else, I'd just like to bring 2 questions together that were asked reasonably early in the piece and have got a bit lost, I think. One from Lorena and one from Maria. One was, have any of the panelists used their data analysis skills to do any projects in underdeveloped countries? And the other one was, if somebody doesn't have experience but would like to volunteer and get experience that way, is that a thing? Does anybody want to take either one or both of those?
So data analytics project in a developed country, and then how does volunteer work plays out into trying to use that to break into the field? Cool, awesome. Any other panelists?
Well, I do, recently I worked with the Vinnova Swedish innovation agency to help for Mexico, the AI for Gender Equality project. So we really want to find out what data is available, try to see if there's any way we can really improve the gender-related, domestic violence, and also even workplace, the inequality and all these gender-related issues. And we try to solve that the problem by bringing all the people, globally, like from Australia, myself, and US, and also Sweden, and about 4 or 5 countries. The people, forming a team and try to really tackle the issues and try to really surface what insight we can bring it and make a project. And did data mining, and then built a model, and then try to learn the insights and try to really share the learnings with the global non-profit organizations, so that we can kind of improve the future, the direction. So actually, when you go and search and try to involve meetups and all this, non-profit organization, that there are a lot of good, AI for social good, technology for good projects going on, and everyone welcomes, everyone's, contribution and participation. So opportunities there. So don't be afraid, and go and explore the opportunities actually exist, already. So that's my take on for social good project.
Awesome, fantastic.
And from my side, Ramon, so a couple of people I knew had their roles made like redundant, and so what they've done as part of their transition is they've actually volunteered their time. So I put in a link on the chat. So if you go to govolunteer.com.au and search for analysts, you'll find a lot of roles. And so what has happened is a lot of these people have gone and worked for nonprofits. So one good example is Hello Sunday Morning, which actually helps with alcohol addiction. So she worked part-time for them, and now she's actually become a full-time analyst for that particular company because they really liked her work. So it's you can gain skills, and then you can also become part of the company if they really like you. So there is a lot of opportunity out there. A lot of people need help. So the link I've given gives you the opportunity to go work for NFPs and then gain skills and also become part of the company.
So essentially, Yes, it is doable to break into the industry through volunteering work. And right now, because of the situation, that is actually becoming more visible. That's fantastic. All right, Brendan, any other questions that we would like to tackle before we close? I think we're right on time. So
yeah, look, I mean, I think the panel have given an enormous amount of their time, and I'd like to thank them very much on behalf of everybody who's here. There's, I think there was nearly 150 people in this webinar. So, guys, you've reached out and touched an awful lot of people, and we'd like to thank you for that. I'm not going to ask you to stay any longer, but I know there are more questions. If you'd like to stick around, then by all means do. But I think you've given your pound of flesh for this evening, and we very much appreciate your time. So, yeah, as I say, guys, if you want to stick around, by all means do. But otherwise, thank you very much, and we very much appreciate your time.
I second that as well.
Thank you.
It's fun. Cheers.
Take care.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Guys,
Thank you,
thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So, Ramon, I'm just going to go share my screen here a second. So you'll have to tell me if that comes through. All right.
Okay.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So guys, I think on behalf of everybody here, we want to say well done to the panel, and also to Ramon, who I think mediated that discussion really well. Ramon has a great way of making complex things simple, which is why he's such a great educator and why we love him so much at Coder Academy here. Look, the final thing I would like to say, if you've got any more questions, please drop them into the chat. If there's any burning questions that we may have missed in the chat, please drop them in now. Gonzalo's just dropping one in there, which we'll get to in a second. The final couple of things I would like to reiterate. If any part of what we've done this evening has got you fired up and got you thinking, right, I actually want to take a serious step towards a career in data analysis, then you absolutely cannot do any better than signing up for the Python and Data Analytics short course, which Ramon is running, which we talked about at the beginning. But the thing that really is critical if you're thinking of that is, if you sign up in the next 24 hours, you will get 20% off the fee. It won't be $19.99, it will be $15.99. You save $400, why not do that? And that's where you go to do it, which maybe Dallas, you could drop that into the chat again. I know it was put in at the beginning. And if you want to see more of Ramon, and let's face it, who doesn't? Ramon is making another wonderful appearance on Tuesday, the 20th of October at 6 p.m. Is that an hour's workshop, Ramon? Or?
It is 1.5 to 2 hours, I believe.
Hour and a half, 2 hours of Ramon teaching stuff which will be immediately relatable, even if you don't have any data analytics or Python background. And really what it does is it allows you to see how the short course will work, and what quality of education and presentation you are going to get. So that is something maybe to put in your diaries. And as I said at the beginning, finally, if you wish to have any more conversation about any of this stuff, Dallas, Goran, and myself will be available all day tomorrow. So please, yep, thank you.
Brendan, so
yep.
There's a question, Gonzalo. I would suggest, talk to Goran, Dallas, or Brendan for your question, and then I'm going to tackle Rick. Asked me a question specifically here, so I'm going to tackle that one before we close out. And the question goes: in your opinion, does the current iteration of machine learning and deep learning appears to be at its peak, or have we barely scratched the surface in what the technology is capable of? To be frank, I think there's still so many. The answer is that I don't know. I don't know. What I can tell you though is that which is a fact. A lot of these tools that we're using nowadays, they have been around for many, many years. I believe the first perceptron, which is what deep learning came from, where deep learning came from, got invented in the 50s or in the 90s, at the late 50s, early 60s. Nowadays is that we have the computing power to actually make that usable to a certain degree. deep learning runs on a graphical processing unit, or GPU. A GPU, your regular computer, usually has 4 to 8 cores in more modern computers. A GPU has 6,000 cores. What does this mean? Because this all sounds well and done, but we don't know. But the thing is that if I want to sum 10 lists of numbers, say how much all of my colleagues make, how much does the food I buy cost, how much rain are we going to get in the next 10 days, I can have my 8 workers in my computer sum up all of those values at the same time. And instead of taking a day to do all that summing, then I can take just an hour to do all that summing because I send it to my 8 friends. Now, in the deep learning environment, you cannot do that with 8 people. It's just going to take a week or 2 weeks. But you can take advantage of the graphical processing unit. Not anyone, but they are mostly using NVIDIA ones, and those have thousands of cores. So you have thousands of friends helping you sum numbers or helping you run a bakery. If you need to make the orders that you're going to get at your bakery in the morning, you need to get them done by 9 a.m. and you have a lot of flour and a lot of things to build the bread, but you don't have enough hands, then you need workers. So that's sort of the same thing with that technology. It's not new, it's per se. A lot of the techniques used nowadays are, but they are being implemented so much better, in a much better way, because of a lot of things have improved in computing power in the computers that we have. So I hope that answers your question. Let's see, are you talking about the course, Ramona?
That's me.
Okay, let's see. Okay, so then I don't have any other questions. So awesome. If you have any more questions, let me know. I'm gonna put my well, you can get in touch with Brendan, Goran, and in Dallas. And if they cannot get to your question, they'll certainly send it to me. So I'll be more than happy to take them as well.
100%, 100%. Look, guys, appreciate you giving us your time this Wednesday evening, and I think we'll sign off here now. So thanks to Ramon, thanks to everybody, thanks to you guys for being here, and I hope we see several of you on Ramon's course in a few weeks' time, and I hope we can start you onto a pathway into a great career in data analytics. So cheerio, everybody. I'm gonna hit the kill button.
Have a great evening, everyone.
See you guys. Bye bye.